hope you're doing well and welcome back to another video. This is going to be my January wrap up of all the books I read in the month of January. I say it every single time and I usually don't fulfill it, but I'm going to try and be quick this time because I don't really have that much to say about these books apart from like really only one that really stood out to me. I read 11 books, I DNF'd one. This came out to 2,560 pages and 20.5 hours of audiobook listening. It was honestly not a very good start to the year. Quite a lot was just like a bit mediocre, a bit meh. Only had 1 5-star and the second highest rating was a 4.25. Like this year I want to try and like unhaul books that I didn't love, so I'm gonna be just telling you the unhauls within each monthly wrap up of the year, instead of doing like a dedicated video for an unhaul, because I just want to try and read and go straight away. Do you know what I mean? Anywho, so the first book I read was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. I read this mostly because it fulfilled their prompt in the Buzzwordathon, and also I wanted to just read it so I can watch the film.
And I have watched the film now. Should I do a whole book and movie review? I mean, I don't really have much to say, choice.
Anyway, I don't know, I like this. I give it 4 stars. It follows Judy Blume as well, no, it doesn't follow Judy Blume, it follows Margaret Simon actually. And her family moved from New York to like the suburbs of New Jersey. And how old is she? I can't remember. I think she's like, I want to say 12. But yeah. So she sort of like makes some new friends with the pre-teen sensations, and it's just sort of like exploring like early like adolescence, being a girl, and sort of like things growing and like talking about like boys and like relationships and like getting like your period and just like all those sort of things. I think it's quite good. Obviously I can't really relate, but some parts about sort of like the idea of like not fitting in and stuff, I feel like it was handled quite well, and I do see like the themes and topics discussed in this being applicable to like today's like teenage girls as well. And yeah, it was a very quick read, quite fun, and yeah, I guess I would recommend it, but it wasn't like amazing. This I will be unhauling. Then I read a book that I thought I was really gonna like, because I love Irish fiction, but this was just not really it, and that is From a Low and Quiet Seat by Donald Ryan. I read this whilst listening to the audiobook as well. The audiobook is really, really good. Like the narration by these 3 different people I think is done so well, and there's like a lot of like emotion and enthusiasm put into it. I do think that's a very good like recording, so if I do ever read this again, I probably won't. I would listen to it audibly, I wouldn't read it physically, so this isn't unhauling, and this is one of my self-destruct books as well, so I'm happy to have gone rid of one of them. But yeah, this follows 3 men, Farouk, Lampi and John. It starts with Farouk, and his was my favourite. He is living in Syria with his family, and it's sort of like war torn, and he is trying to like get away from there. So like it's like dealing with like the traffickers, and then when he arrives in Ireland, the aftermath in a way. And then Lampi is just sort of like a 20-ish something guy, who sort of like thinks back on like his like past and like things that he wasn't able to achieve or did, and different like of like romances and stuff. And then John is a older guy, and he is sort of like thinking back to his like past and something terrible he did, and sort of like trying to repent to God. And then in the final part of the book, is split into 4 parts. three men, and then the final part, where all of their lives are sort of like interconnected in a way, and you get to see how this wraps up. So I feel like the writing is quite good, and I would classify this in the literary genre, like a lot of Irish fiction is. There is plot, but it's more about the characters and like their analysis. But this sort of leads to criticism because I didn't like any of them really. I didn't find relatability. I didn't find like anything to connect me to them. And I just didn't really care all that much, to be honest. Farouk was the best, and I did enjoy his part the most. But the other two were just meh. Also, the female characters in here are just so one-dimensional. Like, there is literally like nothing to them. Some of them are objectified as well, and I just didn't like that. Also, in every single part, what a character or multiple are described as fat or other synonyms, and all in a negative light. And then in John's part, it's like used as quite like a bit of like a bullying tactic, and I didn't see the need for that at all. This was written in 2018, and just to have like fat phobia in your book is just sort of unnecessary. And yeah, I don't know, I don't really like it. This will be going. Bye. The next book I read, listened to, was Vinegar Girl by Anne Tyler. This is part of the Hogarth Shakespeare sort of like collection of retellings. I listened to Hagsea by Margaret Atwood last year, and that was really, really good. I really, really enjoyed it. So I thought this might have been in a similar vein. I don't know. Also, I've never read anything by Anne Tyler, and I just wanted to check her out. And also, her name begins with Anne, and I wanted to take part in the Read Good challenge. And the January prompt was a book by an author called Anne. So, ding, ding, ding. But yeah, I didn't really like this. I gave this 2.25 stars. We're following Kate, and she's like, I want to say she's like 20, late 20s, early 30s maybe, but she's sort of just like living a like existence that is a little bit just like mundane and monotonous. She's keeping house for her scientist father and younger sister, and also works like a nursery, but she just sees her life not really going anywhere. But like this might change with the dad's plan to marry her off to Piotr, who is his like scientist assistant, because he's going to be deported in a few months' time. And I won't say anything, but just like, does she not? I don't know. Well, I do know, but I won't tell you. But anyway, yeah, I think it's like the writing was fine. It was okay. It's like quite a fast-paced read, and like you do go through it quite quickly. I don't really see that much development within the characters, only really Kate. I think what Tyler was trying to say through Kate wasn't too bad on like the role and place of women around that age range, and how they're like viewed in society, about how they should get married and have children by now and things like that. And she does sort of talk about like the immigrant experience in a way, but I don't think in a very good manner. So like Piotr, he is like described as being quite like backwards viewpoint, and like he speaks very harshly. And another character called Mrs. Liu, her like use of like grammar and like vocabulary, even though she's been in America for like many years, just I didn't really like the way it was sort of like painting them and sort of like pandering to some stereotypes. And also she like, there's other place names and locations like this meant to be set in Baltimore, but Piotr just says like my country, and like we never know where that is, which I just feel like is a bit unnecessary, because like, why wouldn't you say that? It just doesn't make sense to me. I guess maybe like she didn't want to offend people from his country, but like if you're just painting them in a better light, then you wouldn't have run into that problem, would you? And it would have made more sense. Also, I just don't think I really liked the overall story arc and how things happened. And in sort of a way she is tamed, because it is a retelling of The Taming of the Shrew. I haven't read the original, I never plan to, but I just didn't really like it, especially after a few things before then. I don't know, it was like okay-ish as like a romancy contemporary book, but if it was trying to say anything else, I don't really think it did that well. um Also, I just didn't like the like discourse on sort of like animal rights and like vegan vegetarian people in the book. It's very like one-sided towards anti-vegan, and those that share these views are sort of like belittled and shown to be the baddie in the book. And yeah, I just don't think it was handled with the nuance it deserved or was done well at all. And that just sort of irked me, and I didn't really like it. So yeah, I didn't really like this book. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't mind reading something else by Anne Tyler. I haven't written her off, but this wasn't for me. I then read an e-arc of The White and Blue Between Us by Kiyohiko. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. I got it through NetGalley, so thank you, and also to Kondasha Publishers for accepting me to pre-publication reviewer of the English translation of this manga, which has just recently come out. I gave this 2.5 stars. It's my honest review. I didn't really like it. It was okay, and I enjoyed some parts, but it was just too short for any like that much to happen. Basically, we're following Hozami and Mishima, who shared a like secret queer love whilst I was in high school, and thinking it was for the better, Hozami ended it and like left the island that they were living on. But then he comes back a few years later to help out on his like parents' like shop, and Mishima is now like distanced himself and just living on his grandfather's lighthouse. So it's I just reading my review here, it's very, very short. It's billed as a second chance romance. We follow the two and see if this white lie that Hozami told whilst I was in high school and the time spent apart is too much to like not get anything back. I think the author did sort of explore this sort of like queer experience and coming of age not too badly, and there is other parts to it, but it was just really too short to do much. Yeah. There's also a sex scene that just like comes like so out of the blue, and I was just like did I miss some pages or something? Like it just came out too quickly and just felt very unnecessary and pulled me out of the story. And I just didn't like it. I also would say like the artwork is fine. It's like kind of pretty. And just like the general story is fine. It's nothing new, nothing that exciting. I guess I would recommend it, but like also there is better queer mangas out there, so yeah. Also, like final point is that like the backstory parts of when they was in high school was my favorite parts, and that's sort of like the smaller part of the story. So yeah, I don't know. Thank you, but goodbye. Then I read this poetry collection, Let the Light Pour In by Lem Sisse. I ended up giving this first of all 3 stars, but then I rounded it down to 2.5. Yeah, this I really wanted to enjoy. It's basically just like little like 4-line poems that Sisse wrote in like the morning, just sort of like gratitude and like the like letting like lightness overcoming darkness in a sense. Yeah, I thought it was fine to start with, but like after like the 20% mark, it just got very, very, very repetitive, basically just rehashing the same thing sort of many times. And yeah, I just felt like it was very like bland, and yeah, I didn't really like this collection all that much, sorry. I wanted to, but it's clear they was written like in a very short amount of time. They're very like simplistic. There was like a little rhyme, which I guess it's fine. And this sort of like notion of like lightness overcoming dark, like alluding to one's mental health, I feel like could have been explored a bit more. But yeah, for what it was, I didn't really like it, and I will be unhauling this book. I read another e-arc manga called The Ultramarine Sky by Nagasara Furuya. I am sorry again. This one I did like. I gave 4 stars too, so thank you to NetGalley and Kondasha Publishing for accepting me to be the pre-publication reviewer of, again, the English translation of this manga. Like with the other one, the Japanese version did come out a few years ago, but only recently been translated. This follows Kai and Ren, and like all throughout like middle school and most of high school until their senior year, they've been like in the same class and sat next to each other, so they've grown a really like strong bond. But then in their final year, they are separated, and from this, Kai feels that they're like growing apart, and whilst Ren is sleeping like in his desk, he tells him that his love may not be wholly platonic, and ... will this be reciprocated. Yeah, I really loved how like this manga went along. The 2 main characters are like great, they're very complex, and we also get introduced to their friends, which was nice as well. The flashback moments I really enjoyed, back to sort of like in like when they was younger. It's just cute and sweet, and it's just very like heartwarming away, and like sort of fluffy. It's not like over fluff. It's definitely, I feel like the book is grounded in their like development and the analysis of the characters more than just like the fluff. Also, I appreciate there is like no explicit like scenes, which is something I just personally don't like reading in books, or looking at in mangas. But yeah, it's also very common in BLs, but yeah, this didn't have any of that, which I appreciated and liked. Artwork is very cute and nice, and I liked it. Anything I would say is that quite a lot of times the characters are only drawn with one eye, which just I don't know why that is. It's just a little bit weird. It sort of like takes me out of the story, but yeah, it was nothing really. It was fine. It was just, yeah. I also would say I feel like this would be better as a series or a longer manga, because you're left sort of like wanting more to see how like their relationship grows and things. And yeah, I just feel like it would have been better as a series, but as it was, I feel like it was fine. It was good, and a very decent 4-star read. I then ended up finishing this, which I started ages ago, and also read this for my Bookish World Cup. These are the Swedish and American entries. My grandmother sent her regards and apologies by Frederick Buckman. She's translated from Swedish by Henning Ko. Should I say about them? I mean, I guess so, but also check the video for more details. This I gave 3 stars too. We're basically following Elsa, and basically her granny dies, and like they have a really strong bond. And then afterwards, her granny is sort of like sent her on like a treasure hunt in a sort of sense to try and uncover the granny's life beforehand, and also how all the people in like the apartment place they live in is a character in her stories that she was told, in a way. I don't know. I feel like the story is nice and fine and good, and I guess overall how it does develop and things fit into place was like done well, and I did like that. But oh my gosh, this is just so dense. It's so long-winded. There is far too many tangents, and it goes off in places that just don't make sense. It's just so much repetition of the same things and ideals and messages and just stuff, and it's just annoying. In all honesty, it's a very frustrating book to read, and yeah, I didn't like the reading experience. I feel like the story was fine, but overall, meh. Which is a shame really. I feel like if this had been cut down by literally like 200, maybe not 200 pages, but like 150 pages or something, this could have been a lot more better, and the messages and what he was trying to say had more of a punch to them. But as it was, no, not really. This I will be unhauling once I finish my Bookish World Cup, because obviously I need to keep it for then. And then similarly ish was Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl by Andre Lawlor, the American entry. I gave this 3.25 stars. So it won that match, but it was quite a close one. Again, in a similar way, this sort of things unravel as the book goes along, and I guess I like that, but yeah. This is following, it's in 1993, and we follow Paul, and he lives in, I want to say Iowa City, but he also goes to, I want to say Provincetown in like New England. I might be wrong though. And also San Francisco. And he is a shapeshifter. I feel like what the author was trying to say about sort of like the trans experience and like living in like a non-binary body in a sense was done quite well. And there was definitely a part sort of like time sensitive about like the 90s America within the queer scene and what that was trying to say. I liked, and there's a special part where he's sort of thinking back to like when he was in New York City in like the late 80s during like the AIDS epidemic, and I feel like that bit was very, very hard hitting and done very, very well. And there is like quite good messages and things that this book is trying to say that I did like, but they're cheapened, in my opinion, quite a lot by the author's fixation on the sex scenes in this book. There's far too many, and it's just unnecessary, and the level of detail implied to them is more so than to other parts of the book. And yeah, I just feel like it was just, I didn't really enjoy that part of it. But yeah, it was quite a shame, in all honesty. I thought this could have been a lot better had those parts, or at least some of them, been omitted. But yeah, then we come to the best book of the year, and that isn't really saying much because all of them was a bit meh, in all honesty. But this is a utterly fantastic read, and I literally implore everybody and anybody to read this book. This is Matt Cain's new book, One Love. I have a whole reading vlog for this book, so check that out up there if you so desire to do so. But I just absolutely adore this so much. It's like dual time frame, sort of dual POV, but mostly from one of the characters. It's following Danny and Guy, and in 2002, they meet at Manchester Uni, and they've both sort of like repressed their gay identities like since then, but they're in the new city. They want to explore the scene, explore themselves, and they meet and become like really good friends. And then also it's following them in 2022, and they're both travelling up to Manchester again from London, to go to Manchester Pride because they haven't visited the city like since, and also they've sort of like grown a little bit apart, and Danny wants to tell Guy that he loves him, has loved him this whole like 2 decades. And yeah, this is a love story, but it's not like one you've ever read before. It is just so amazing. I'm literally getting like goose pimples. Can you see? Not really. Just thinking about his book, it just held such a special place in my heart. There's so much relatability, and the Cain just explores so many topics about sort of like queer body image and sort of like classism and like the way people from like northern places are like viewed in like a negative light. Also about sort of like the respect for and like the bad gay in a way. Literally so much. It's like it's quite political, but not like over amount. It's very funny as well. Cain just writes such like believable, complex, and like funny and like lovable characters that you just want to stay with. Like this book was long. It was like 400 something pages, 450 pages. I could have read like a double version of this. I just absolutely adored being in the company of Danny and Guy, and like the other characters in this, like Danny's mum Eileen, oh my lord, an icon. I want to say Arthur, but I feel like how have I forgotten his name? But also there's like his older this older queen that's just, I love you, girl. I love you. And yeah, I just love this book. Easy 5-star. I literally cried at like page 13 of this, and by like page like 20 I was like, I love it. I mean, it's Matt Cain, of course I love it. So yeah, definitely 100% read this book and check out my video for more on what this book is about. But yeah, I love you. Literally, I finished this book and I literally just sat down and cuddled it. Like, I literally just like sat in my bed like just cuddling it for like a solid like 5 minutes. So I was just like, thank you for writing this book. I love it. Then we come to my first DNF of the year, and that was Between You and These Bones by FD Soul. This is a poetry collection. I got to page like 80 or something. Literally, I think it was like 40 something percent, so about like there ish something. Yeah, I wasn't jamming with it. I didn't like find any relatability or like see myself in any of the poems or what she was trying to say. It was just a little bit confusing, a little bit basic, a little bit bland. The artwork and like the line drawings I did quite like, so I feel like I'm going to quickly go through it and just like look at them again before unhauling it, but this I'm going to give to my sister anyway when I see her next. But yeah, I probably would have given this about like a 2.5 ish stars maybe, so I just felt like I didn't need to continue it, and I didn't, so I'm happy I didn't because obviously I want to start DNFing more this year, so I'm happy I DNF'd that because I didn't like it. Yeah, makes sense. Then I read The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Core. What is this book? This is so weird. I gave this 3.75 stars. I don't know if I loved it. I don't know if I hated it. I don't know. It's a weird one. But basically we're following a mermaid, and she meets with this like non-binary plague doctor in the aftermath of like the city or like country where she lives, after her children like ate everybody there. Yeah, it's weird. But like basically it follows these two and they go through this like forest and they meet with like these like boys, and then they sort of like go back with them, and it's sort of like this like weird like cultish thing going on where these like scientists, sort of like godlike people, are like playing like really messed up games in a way. I honestly don't know. I haven't even written my review for this. This is just a very weird book. I feel like it's grotesque. There is a lot of like body horror and like dirty filthy bits, but in some ways it is quite beautiful, and there's like a little romance that blooms, which I did quite like. And I did like the representation of like non-binary people, well, a non-binary thing, person. Okay, it's still a person, but it's sort of like it's weird. It's a very weird book. I'm definitely interested in following like some more things by Core. I haven't read anything else like this before, so yeah, recommend that. It's just very weird, which I trigger warnings. Every time I say I'll do a short one, but I never do. But anyway, the last book I read, which I literally finished in like the early hours of February, but it counts, was Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue. I listened to the audiobook whilst reading along. I really enjoy this book. It is 4.25 stars. This is sort of like a fictionalization of the time when Eliza Rain and Anne Lister were at the King's Manor School in York. Eliza was a queer biracial woman. Her mother was from India, and her and her sister like moved back to England, and then they was sent up to York after their father died, and she went to the school, and then Anne Lister is the main person that is in the Gentleman Jack series, if you watched that, but she was a lesbian, like Tory sort of like woman in Yorkshire that was like very like money, but also like power, and she was just iconic, and she had like lots of like different like love affairs with different women, and she also had this like this diary where she had like different like notes and like weird like scribbles and stuff that like meant certain things, which I feel like I think people are still today like trying to transcribe what she wrote. But anyway, following them two when he was younger, about 14ish, in the manor school, and Eliza being like biracial, and Lister being like a very like sort of like weird in a way and like different from the other girls because she's very like outspoken and she knows what she wants, and the way she carries herself isn't like typical of women at the time. And yeah, and they sort of like grow a friendship and end also a little bit more, and yeah, I did quite like it, and also it's sort of like dual time frame because it's the time when they was at the school. But let me just, where is the contents bit here? So can you see, like, it says rain to Lister that year, 1815, and that's when she's like writing letters to Anne Lister, while she's at like an asylum place, or like a mental health hospital, at like what's currently happening. And then it also goes to like 1804 and 1806, drawn the time that they was at the school together. And yeah, I enjoyed this. Last year I read The Wonder by Emma Donoghue, and I liked it. I think it's well written. I just didn't particularly like the story, but this I did like the story, and it is very well written. It's interesting to learn about like Eliza and Lister, and just sort of like queer lesbian history in a way. And I would definitely want to check more about the actual like real lifeness that this is based on, and also just check out more books by Emma Donoghue. So yeah, I did like this and I did enjoy it, and along with this book, these are the only two I'm going to be keeping for this month, so I'm happy about that. End of this wrap up. Hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for next month's. See you very soon, everybody. Hope you have a nice morning, even though wherever you are in the world. Bye.